Mitzi Shore was the den mother of a berserk Cub Scout pack, as Letterman once said, one which brimmed with a stunning array of now-famous comics who broke because she tapped them to carry out.
In the 1970s, David Letterman babysat her children and Jay Leno slept on the back stairs of her Sunset Strip club, at which Jim Carrey later tended the door. Shore, who was regarded as the godmother of comedy in Los Angeles and whose Comedy Store was one of the most important showcases for stand-up in the country, died Wednesday after battling Parkinson's disease, according to a statement from the Comedy Store. She was 87.
Mitzi was an extraordinary businesswoman and decades ahead of her time who cultivated and celebrated the artistry of stand-up comedy. She was also a loving mother, not only to her own 4 children, but to the myriad of comedians who adored her. She leaves behind an indelible mark and legacy and has helped change the face of comedy. We will all miss her dearly, the statement said.
Shore had been in hospice care for some time. Her son, actor Pauly Shore, had been helping care for her and tweeting updates about her final days. For at least a dozen years, she was all-powerful, during a remarkably fertile time for stand-up comedy, the 1970s and early 80s, when many of today's comedy stars showed up in LA to go on stage at the only place that mattered. Paul Brownfield, who covered comedy for The Times, wrote in 2003.
The first comedian to officially share her life was her husband, Sammy Shore, who founded the Comedy Store in 1972 with fellow comic Rudy DeLuca. When the Shores divorced 2 years later, Sammy gave her the club as a way of lowering his alimony payments.
A mother of 4, Mitzi Shore in essence gained a 5th child, the Comedy Store that she had named. When she took over, it was more of a variety room than a comedy club, but she transformed it into a 3-room showcase for stand-up.
Comics felt very belittled in those days. They always had to work with a singer, Shore recalled in 1993 in The Times. I wanted it to be all comics. No jugglers and magicians. I wanted to give them respectability.
Her timing was excellent. In 1972, Johnny Carson had moved The Tonight Show from New York to Los Angeles, helping to make LA the place for young comedians who strove to appear on his show, and the Comedy Store was the place to be seen, Brownfield wrote in 2003.
The Comedy Store was an artist's colony, a workshop for experimenting that wouldn't work if the comedians were paid, she often said.